Hello. Hello. Yeah. So hello and welcome everyone. A very good afternoon to each one of you. In this session, we are going to discuss the inflation in India. So this is the second session. The first session we had on last Friday, right? So in this session, we will discuss about the next topics of the inflation. And before I move ahead, I will discuss the previous lecture quickly, right? So we will quickly revise previous lecture so that uh, you are able to interlink with the existing concept, right? So we will start with the previous lecture. About myself, I am a chartered accountant. I have appeared 3 times in the interview, 7 years of teaching experience, and I am one of the director and one of the faculty at the right to pay at the DIADEMY. So first of all, uh, what will be the coverage of this session? So in this session, we will cover the meaning, the causes of inflation, the demand pull versus the cost push inflation, various terms which are associated with the inflation like stagflation, Phillips curve, type of inflation, headline versus core, etc. Right? So all these things actually we discussed in the last class. Most of these things यहाँ तक हम लोगों ने लास्ट क्लास में डिस्कस कर लिया था, तो हम इसको फटाफट से क्विकली रिवाइज करेंगे. एंड दीज न्यू थिंग्स, imported inflation, DNS allowance, cobweb phenomena, all these things we will discuss today. उसको हम आज डिस्कस करेंगे. Apart from that, we will discuss the calculation of inflation, the base effect versus the base year, the CPI versus the WPI, the producer price index, impacts of inflation, recent inflation dynamics, how to control the inflation, and all of these things, right? So for the recording of past session, I will give the link in the description box of the YouTube, and you can see over there, right? Those people who are attending the class, live class, they can ask the question in the chat box, and I will be replying them after the discussion of every concept, right? So it will be an interactive session. You must ask your question whenever you have any type of question. So to start with, if we want to really master the economy को master करने के लिए you need to have the step by step approach, right? And for that matter, any subject in the civil services examination, you must have the step by step approach. And when I say step by step approach, what is the meaning of that? First of all, you should glance the previous year question. You must have a previous year question bank. Number two, you should build the foundation, and this foundation you can build from the NCERTs plus the standard books, right? So this is the approach. Third, you should apply this concept through newspapers, through current affairs. So for example, when you complete the inflation chapter from this topic and you read the newspaper, then you should try to interlink the concept which we have we have discussed in the class and the news which is there in the newspaper. And then regular revision. I always say daily revision, weekly revision, and exam time revision. This is must. And then MCQ and the previous year question practice you must do. So this step by step approach you must follow for every subject, and for economy also we are following this systematic pattern in the classes. Now to start with, what is the inflation? So first of all, I want to tell you again कि यहाँ पर I will be going fast because I have discussed all these things in the previous lecture. I will give the link of previous lecture in the YouTube description box. You can see the description, and then you can see these detailed discussion from that session. Otherwise, here my purpose is to go fast forward, revise the things, and then start the discussion of new things, right? So is it okay? I hope you got the point. So let us start. What is inflation? Inflation मतलब हिंदी में इसको बोलते हैं महंगाई, ठीक है? और inflation में there are some important words you must remember. It is upward movement, मतलब increase हो रहा है, ठीक है? General prices में, general prices means across the goods and services and across the country or the state, means it should be widespread for a throughout a long territory and across the goods and services. Then there are two important things which are there. Persistent means persistent का मतलब है कि एक ट्रेन होना चाहिए, लॉन्ग टर्म में आपको बढ़ रहा है प्राइस ये. एप्रिशिएबल, एप्रिशिएबल मतलब विजिबल है, वन कैन सी कि हाँ ये प्राइस बढ़ रहा है, राइट? नाउ I gave the example in the past class. Again, for this you will go to the past class session, right? I cannot discuss here again. One thing is there to understand year on year basis. What is the meaning of year on year basis? Year on year basis का मतलब होता है कि we are comparing the same period of this year as and the same period of the last year. For example, week number 40 of the 2019 we are comparing with 2020, and the change in the price, the increase in the price, based upon that we calculate the inflation. Inflation की calculation कैसे होती है उसको हम आज discuss करेंगे, right? Then year on year inflation, this is the same thing. Now purchasing power. So inflation actually reduces the purchasing power. So earlier if you had 100 rupees and you are getting suppose 5 kilogram of potato, now when the prices of potato increase you will be able to get less amount of potato. So the same 100 rupees will be giving you less amount of potato. So the point is कि आपका जो purchasing power है वो कम हो जाती है. 100 rupees पहले जो 5 किलो आलू खरीद सकते थे, अभी सेम 100 रुपीज आपको 4 किलो आलू खरीद के देंगे, ठीक है? तो उसको परचेसिंग पावर रिड्यूस करने को बोलते हैं. नाउ दिस इन्फ्लेशन कैन बी कैलकुलेटेड एट डिफरेंट लेवल, क्योंकि जो प्राइस है वो या तो हम कंज्यूमर लेवल पे देख सकते हैं, या प्रोडक्शन लेवल पे देख सकते हैं, या होलसेल लेवल पे देख सकते हैं. सो तीनों जगह पे एट ऑल द थ्री स्टेजेस वी कैलकुलेट द इन्फ्लेशन. सो फॉर दैट वी विल सी सीपीआई, डब्ल्यूपीआई एंड दिस पीपीआई इन द टुडे सेशन. आज के सेशन में हम इसको डिस्कस करने वाले हैं. Now this is the long term trend in last 4-5 years. This thing I have taken from the economic survey. Then causes of inflation. Yes, सबसे important. This is the most conceptual part of this total discussion. If you understand this, I am telling you, you will be able to solve lot many questions. Okay, so please understand this very, very carefully. Don't be complacent in understanding this. Apply your mind. Be active. Okay, don't be lazy. And whenever you are watching the lecture, please sit straight on your chair. Don't be lazy. Okay, this is not a movie. Bring energy. Okay, this is not a movie. This is not a web series. This is a lecture. Sit straight. Have pen and paper with you, and then you will see a whole level of effectiveness in your preparation. Okay, you will see whole level of energy in the preparation. So causes of inflation. So इन्फ्लेशन इट हैज टू डायनेमिक्स. तो इन्फ्लेशन का मतलब क्या होता है? प्राइस, प्राइस बढ़ रहा है. अब प्राइस दो कारण से बढ़ सकता है, या तो डिमांड ज्यादा हो गई है या सप्लाई कम हो गई है. सो अब हम देखते हैं कि डिमांड ज्यादा क्यों हो सकती है, जिसको हम बोलते हैं डिमांड पुल फैक्टर. सो डिमांड, व्हाई द डिमांड कैन इंक्रीज? नंबर वन, आइदर बिकॉज ऑफ मनी, मनी इज इंक्रीजिंग, और देयर आर अदर फैक्टर्स. इवन विदाउट मनी इंक्रीजिंग, the demand can increase. For example, population increases or there is a change in the taste and preferences. ठीक है, तो दोनों ही कारण इसमें हो सकते हैं. Then apart from that, supply side, supply क्यों कम हो सकती है? तो या तो डिमांड बढ़ेगी, मनी ज्यादा आ जाती है, या अदर फैक्टर हो जाते हैं. डिमांड बढ़ती है और अदरवाइज देयर इज अ डिक्रीज इन द सप्लाई, या तो सप्लाई कम हो जाती है. नाउ व्हाई द सप्लाई डिक्रीजेस? It decreases because of many factors. Either it can be because of poor infrastructure. For example, in India we have poor quality of road, or it can be because of natural disaster. नेचुरल डिजास्टर की वजह हो सकती है ये, लाइक फ्लड्स और ड्रॉट एटसेट्रा, और मैनमेड फैक्टर्स भी हो सकते हैं। फॉर एग्जांपल द पीपल स्टार्ट ब्लैक मार्केटिंग और होल्डिंग द प्रोडक्ट्स, राइट? So it can be because of any of these reasons, right? So I have discussed everything in detail, right? And here we can see कि demand pull inflation में why the money increase can happen, or what are the factors because of which the money supply can increase. Money supply किन कारणों की वजह से increase हो सकती है? So money supply can increase because of number one, personal income growth हो जाती है, या गवर्नमेंट एक्सपेंडिचर ज्यादा करता है, फॉर एग्जांपल पीएम किसान स्कीम, or it can be because the rate of interest is decreasing by the central bank, or it can be because more foreign capital is coming into India, FDI हो गया है, ठीक है, then or because high export income, for example now pharma exports are increasing in the COVID time, or because of high black money. What is the meaning of black money? Unaccounted अनटैक्स्ड मनी, जिस पर टैक्स नहीं किया गया हो, जिस पर कोई अनअकाउंट, मतलब ये अनअकाउंटेड मनी होती है, राइट? नाउ अपार्ट फ्रॉम दिस, apart from the factors which increase the income, there are other factors. Even without increasing the income, even without increasing the money, the demand can increase. बिना पैसे के डिमांड बढ़ सकती है अगर पॉपुलेशन बढ़ रही है, so we have more more mouth to feed, और अगर टेस्ट एंड प्रेफरेंसेस चेंज हो रहे हैं. So earlier people were worried about the food, now they demand the nutritious product. अभी उनको क्या चाहिए? मिल्क चाहिए, उनको विटामिन प्रोडक्ट चाहिए, राइट? So these were the demand factors. Now coming to the cost push inflation, या सप्लाई की वजह से जो होते हैं, ठीक है? तो अगर सप्लाई कम होती है तो उससे क्या होता है कि रॉ मटेरियल कम अवेलेबल होता है. इफ द रॉ मटेरियल इज लेस अवेलेबल, दैट मींस the cost will increase, ठीक है? अगर रॉ मटेरियल, फॉर एग्जांपल वी टॉक अबाउट शुगर इंडस्ट्री, so in the sugar industry what is the raw material? Raw material is sugar cane. So if the production of sugar cane reduces, automatically the cost of the sugar cane will increase for the industry, ठीक है? जो फार्मर्स होंगे वो महंगा बेचेंगे. अब शुगर इंडस्ट्री के लिए जब कॉस्ट बढ़ जाएगी शुगर केन की, तो डेफिनेटली द शुगर कंपनी दे विल इंक्रीज द कॉस्ट ऑफ द फाइनल प्रोडक्ट, यानी कि शुगर की, ठीक है? सो सप्लाई कम होने की वजह से कॉस्ट बढ़ जाती है, ठीक है? इसीलिए हम कॉस्ट पुश इन्फ्लेशन भी बोलते हैं. नाउ व्हाई द कॉस्ट कैन इंक्रीज? कॉस्ट क्यों इंक्रीज हो सकती है? बिकॉज ऑफ शॉर्टेज ऑफ सप्लाई. अब शॉर्टेज ऑफ सप्लाई क्यों हो सकती है, अब हम ये देखते हैं, ठीक है? तो शॉर्टेज ऑफ सप्लाई कैन बी बिकॉज ऑफ नंबर वन, शॉर्टेज ऑफ फैक्टर्स ऑफ प्रोडक्शन. फैक्टर्स ऑफ प्रोडक्शन जैसे कि आपका लेबर हो गया, लेबर आपकी शॉर्ट पड़ गई है. फॉर एग्जांपल कोविड, in the COVID time people have migrated to their hometown, ठीक है? Similarly land, shortage of land, because there is increase in the population, so more and more land is being occupied by the housing, urbanization, industry, etc. Then machinery, it can be backward, जैसे इंडिया में टेक्नोलॉजी बैकवर्ड है. Entrepreneurship, because of difficulty of doing business, or because the money or capital, the cost of the interest can increase. So ये सब कारणों की वजह से हमारा शॉर्टेज ऑफ फैक्टर्स ऑफ प्रोडक्शन हो सकता है. देन वी हैव इंडस्ट्रियल डिस्प्यूट्स. बिकॉज ऑफ इंडस्ट्रियल डिस्प्यूट्स आल्सो द सप्लाई कैन रिड्यूस. कोई स्ट्राइक हो जाता है, एक्सीडेंट हो जाता है, ठीक है? नेचुरल कैलेमिटीज, फ्लड्स, ड्रॉट और एनी अदर कैलेमिटी, फॉर एग्जांपल अर्थक्वेक. आर्टिफिशियल स्कार्सिटी, यानी कि the big businessmen they are stocking the product, that is artificial scarcity. Increase in the export बढ़ जाता है, that is also leading to the supply reduce. For example कभी-कभी क्या होता है कि जो ऑनियंस हैं, प्याज हैं, हम उनको एक्सपोर्ट करना अलाउ करते हैं, बट लेटर ऑन when we see कि because of export the supply of onion is less in India, so what we do, we reduce the supply of the onion आउटसाइड इंडिया. तो उसको हम बोलते हैं एक्सपोर्ट कंट्रोल करना, ठीक है? तो अगर ऑनियन का एक्सपोर्ट ज्यादा होता है तो इंडिया में सप्लाई कम हो जाएगी, अगर सप्लाई कम होगी तो प्राइस बढ़ जाएगा इंडिया में. अपार्ट फ्रॉम दैट वी कैन हैव इंटरनेशनल फैक्टर्स, ग्लोबल फैक्टर्स हो सकते हैं. ट्रेड वार हो रही है, ट्रेड वार की वजह से क्या होता है, द सप्लाई ऑफ सम आइटम कैन रिड्यूस. फॉर एग्जांपल ऑयल की सप्लाई कम हो सकती है. एंड अपार्ट फ्रॉम ऑल दीज फैक्टर्स बिकॉज ऑफ व्हिच द सप्लाई इज डिक्रीजिंग, वी हैव वन मोर इंपॉर्टेंट फैक्टर, दैट इज इंक्रीज इन द टैक्स, ठीक है? तो कॉस्ट बढ़ने के लिए या तो सप्लाई कम हो सकती है, या फिर हमारा टैक्स बढ़ सकता है. टैक्स क्यों बढ़ सकता है? टैक्स कैन इंक्रीज बिकॉज the GST or those taxes which are levied on the goods and services, those are increased by the government because of different reasons. ठीक है, so या तो सप्लाई कम हो सकती है या टैक्स बढ़ सकता है, ठीक है, दोनों ही कारणों से हमारा इन्फ्लेशन बढ़ सकता है, ठीक है। तो अभी तक हम लोगों ने 3 कारण आइडेंटिफाई किए। नंबर 1, डिमांड बढ़ सकती है। डिमांड क्यों बढ़ेगी? या तो पैसा ज्यादा आ गया, या फिर हमारा पॉपुलेशन बढ़ गई, या टेस्ट एंड चेंज प्रेफरेंस हो गई, ठीक है। दूसरा, सप्लाई कम हो गई, उसकी वजह से कॉस्ट बढ़ गई, या फिर हमारा टैक्स बढ़ गया। ये हमारे प्राइमरीली रीजंस हैं कि हमारा इन्फ्लेशन क्यों होता है। इज इट क्लियर एवरीवन? प्लीज से यस और नो। इफ यू आर वाचिंग ऑन द यूट्यूब, प्लीज से यस। ओके, वंडरफुल। नाउ चलिए आगे बढ़ते हैं। तो ये सब चीजें हम डिस्कस कर चुके हैं। अभी यूपीएससी प्रीवियस ईयर क्वेश्चन वी डिस्कस्ड, राइट? सो नो नीड टू डिस्कस अगेन। Now types of inflation, this is very important. Types of inflation we can divide based upon the speed of inflation, or we can divide based upon the volatility, the rate of fluctuation, कि कितना फ्लक्चुएट होता है उसके बेसिस पर हम लोग कर सकते हैं, राइट? So just give me a minute, I will be back. Yeah. So या तो स्पीड बढ़ सकती है, either there can be price increase, or there can be fluctuation in the price, or there can be government intervention. Based upon government intervention also we can see the type of inflation. Then voice is not audible. Okay, so Priyanka, please you have to please join from the computer audio. Okay. Or third can be because of government intervention, and then based upon the causes of inflation, right? So to start with, the based upon the speed of inflation. So speed की वजह से either it can be creeping inflation where the rate of increase is 2% to 3%, or it can be walking inflation where the rate of inflation is 3% to 5%, or it can be running inflation, or it can be galloping inflation. So these are the 4 different categories of inflation possible. Now previous year question again, which I have discussed in the past. Okay. Headline versus core inflation. What is the difference? Headline means total inflation, all the items of the inflation. Core means headline minus the volatile items. ठीक है, तो core inflation में क्या करते हैं हम लोग? The inflation of total item minus the inflation of food and fuel, right? So that is core inflation. Core inflation को हम long term inflation भी बोलते हैं. Again, if you are not able to understand this in the quick discussion, please go back to the first lecture, provide the link in the YouTube description, and you can go to the first lecture and understand these things which I have discussed in the past class, previous class. Okay. So now headline inflation, top line inflation भी इसको बोलते हैं हम लोग. Then we have core inflation, excludes energy and the food products. Trends we have discussed in the last class. Okay. Now apart from this we have the government intervention based rate of inflation, type of inflation में, right? So either government can intervene or it can not intervene. If it intervenes, then it is called suppressed inflation. For example, petrol price को control करना. And if government do not intervene, then it is called open inflation, right? Open मतलब there is no control from the side of government. Based upon the causes of inflation also, we can identify the inflation, demand pull, cost push, etc. ठीक है? Now there are three important terms, and which we have discussed in the last class. One is inflation, second is disinflation, third is deflation, and fourth one is reflation. Right? Now, what is the difference between each of them? So, number one, deflation, reflation, stagflation, disinflation, Phillips curve, misery index. All these terms, some of them we discussed in the last class, and the rest of them we will discuss in the today's class. Number one, what is deflation? ठीक है? तो deflation मतलब there is a inflation, but the rate of inflation is declining compared to the past period. उसको हम बोलते हैं deflation. Means inflation तो है, price तो बढ़ रहा है, लेकिन speed कम है. Speed is less. Now the reasons of deflation will be completely opposite to the inflation. The next term is reflation. What is reflation? Reflation means when deflation means negative. I did a mistake, I'm really sorry. Deflation means the rate of inflation is negative. ठीक है? Inflation नहीं है, deflation है. Means the prices are decreasing, right? And when the government intervenes, तो इसको हम बोलते हैं deflation. जब prices हमारे decrease होते हैं, ठीक है, ये हमारे stable prices हैं, और यहाँ से जब decrease होते हैं तो उसको हम बोलते हैं deflation. And when the government intervenes to increase the prices again, then it is called reflation. Reflation means the prices are coming from negative territory to the positive territory, right? So that is called reflation, right? So deliberate action from the side of government to overcome the deflationary situation. And the third one we have disinflation. मतलब inflation तो है लेकिन कम रेट पर है. It is at the slow rate. That is called disinflation, right? So disinflation versus deflation. In the disinflation, you can see prices are rising, but at a slow rate. In the deflation, there is a decline. The prices are actually declining, not rising. Okay. So we have discussed all these differences. Now you can quickly review this deflation, reflation, disinflation, stagflation. Okay, we have discussed this question also in the last class. So with this, the revision of last class is over. Now we will start today's class. Now we will start the discussion of upcoming topics, right? If any doubt in the past class, please ask me right now so that I can continue with the new topics. Okay. So this is the session number 2. Now we will discuss session number 2. So friends, what did I do right now? मैंने अभी क्या किया? I just revised the previous class, okay? And the same practice you must follow. Means आपको क्या करना चाहिए? You must revise the previous day work before you start the new work. It must be a habit because revision is the most important part of the entire preparation. So I always say that you must revise 3 times in your before your exam, minimum 3 times. चाहे आपका exam कभी भी हो, लेकिन you must inculcate 3 practices. Number 1, daily revision. Daily revision just like we did right now. हम लोगों ने we revised the content of 2 hours in just 30 minutes. Okay. So daily revision, it helps increasing retention of the matter, right? It helps you clarifying the concept again. So this is the first thing you must do. Second thing is weekly revision. Weekly means every Sunday. Okay. every Sunday you must devote only and only for the revision, nothing else. Okay, so this will help you consolidate the entire week's matter. जो भी पूरे वीक में आपने पढ़ा है उसको consolidate करने में help करेगा आपको. If there is a backlog of the target, you should also cover that backlog in this particular day. And third is the exam time revision. So in the exam time, in the last 1 month, you must again revise 3 times. आपको 3 times फिर से revise करना चाहिए, right? So this kind of methodology, it will really help you in increasing the marks and becoming the IAS at a fast speed. Okay, so we have discussed all these things in the last class. यहां से लेकर के और यहां तक हम लोगों ने last class में discuss कर लिया, जो हमने अभी quickly revise किया. Now we will start the new concepts and we will basically start this stagflation on Phillips curve. ठीक है, जो हमने we actually did not discuss these two concepts. Rest of the things we discussed. Okay, so then we will discuss calculation of inflation, base effect versus base year, CPI versus WPI, producer price index, then impacts of inflation, recent inflation dynamics, controlling the inflation, how to control the inflation. All these things we are going to discuss in today's class. So to start with the Phillips curve, ठीक है, सबसे पहले हम शुरू करते हैं Phillips curve से. Phillips curve क्या होता है? Before I discuss this concept, let me ask a question from you. Whether the question is inflation good or bad? Inflation अच्छा होता है या गंदा होता है? Is it good or bad? What is your answer? Please give answer in the chat box. Whatever is your answer. Okay, don't worry about the right or wrong answer. Just give the answer, right? My purpose is that you should interact. It should not be a one-way session, right? So let me tell you, inflation, if it is up to a certain level, it helps. कैसे help करता है? What is the meaning of inflation? First of all, inflation का मतलब होता है rise in the price. Price rise जब होगा, when there will price rise, if we see from the perspective of producer or the businessman, they will get more profits because their sale revenue will increase. अगर प्राइस ज्यादा होगा क्या होगा कि उनका प्रॉफिट बढ़ेगा. The profit will increase, right? So if the profit increases, what they will do? They will invest this profit back into the business. So they will increase the investment. If the investment increases, then the production will further increase. The factory output will increase. If the factory output increases, what are the benefits? Benefits of increase in the production. Number one, the number of jobs will increase. यानी कि if the jobs increase, that the rate of unemployment will come down. Okay, this is the first impact. Number two, the GDP will increase, because what is the meaning of GDP? GDP means the production increase in the production level. Okay, and third, the growth rate, the economic growth rate will increase, right? So basically the point I want to make is, because of the rise in the price, the jobs are increasing, the GDP is increasing, the growth rate is increasing. So inflation is good, but there is a problem, or there is a condition, that this rise in price, it should be up to a reasonable level. It should not be unlimited. Okay, only up to reasonable limit. Now what is the meaning of reasonable limit? Reasonable limit का मतलब क्या है? It means you can understand that between 2% to 4%, 2% to 6% in India. If we see in the context of India, it should be between 2% to 6%. It means it should not be below 2%, it should not be more than 6%. In any case, it should not be below 2% and it should not be more than 6%. Ideally, it should be 4%. But in practical life, this strict condition cannot work. The strict rate of 4% cannot work. Therefore, we have a range. हम लोगों ने range दे रखी है, जिसको हम बोलते हैं inflation targeting range. Inflation targeting range बोलते हैं. that government will intervene whenever the prices come around 2% or it go 6% or below above that. Okay, so this is the rate of inflation that is supposed to be there. It ka matlab the inflation is good if it is within a limit, otherwise it will create the problem. अगर रेट बढ़ता है इन्फ्लेशन का तो ये प्रॉब्लम क्रिएट करेगा. Now you will ask a question, sir, why it will create the problem if the prices increase? Okay, so suppose prices are increasing at a very high speed, suppose by 20%. If the prices are rising at the 20% price rise, that means number one, people will start demanding less goods. Demand will come down because when the prices are rising, they will reduce the consumption. If the demand comes down, then automatically the profit of the producer will come down, because even if the prices are high but the sale is not happening. चाहे price ज्यादा हो लेकिन sale तो नहीं हो रही है. If the price come down, then definitely the jobs will be going down, the GDP will go down, and the GDP growth will also go down, right? So can you see that unless like this high rise in the price is actually dangerous. It is not good for the economy. ये economically अच्छा नहीं है, right? So because of this aspect, the government tries to control the rate of inflation through various measures. इस कारण की वजह से गवर्नमेंट रेट ऑफ इन्फ्लेशन को कंट्रोल करने की कोशिश करती है, राइट? नाउ व्हाट इज फिलिप्स कर्व? अब हम बात करते हैं फिलिप्स कर्व की बात करते हैं, ठीक है? सो बेसिकली इफ वी सी दिस थिंग हियर, वी कैन सी वन थिंग दैट increase in inflation up to a limit, within limit, decreases the unemployment rate. ठीक है, I have discussed this thing here in the yellow discussion. जो yellow हमारा मार्क है इसमें मैं डिस्कस कर चुका हूं. Now this relationship is depicted by a curve, and that curve is called Phillips curve. Okay, so this is Phillips curve. Now you will be able to understand the Phillips curve in a systematic manner. So Phillips curve says that if the inflation rate increases up to a certain level, the unemployment rate will come down. So this is Phillips curve. This shows an inverse relationship between the rate of inflation and the rate of unemployment, right? So you just have to remind yourself that this relationship is inverse. Your relationship कैसी है? Inverse है. So it shows the relationship is negative, right? At the high rate of inflation, unemployment rate is low, as is shown in this figure. High rate of inflation, the rate of employment will be less. So Phillips curve, it shows the relationship between the rate of unemployment and the inflation, and this theory is based upon a simple phenomena that with economic growth comes the inflation, right? So the thing that we have discussed in the starting itself, right? Again, the same thing you can see in the Phillips curve. Inflation is good or bad, I have discussed in detail. If it is within a reasonable limit, it is good, otherwise it is not good, it is bad. Okay, now comes the next concept, that is stagflation. So what do you know about the stagflation? Please type in the chat box whatever you know. If you know something about it, please type. दिस विल हेल्प यू कंसोलिडेट मेजर्स। इस कारण की वजह से गवर्नमेंट रेट ऑफ इन्फ्लेशन को कंट्रोल करने की कोशिश करती है। नाउ what is stagflation? Stagflation, okay. So first let us understand what does Phillips curve says. So Phillips curve says that the rate of inflation, if there is a rise in the prices, that is there is inflation, then unemployment rate will come down. There is an inverse relationship. But what is stagflation? First of all, let us see what are the two words which combine together and become the stagflation. So it represents stagnation plus inflation, right? Stagnation means no economic growth or very low economic growth. Economic growth नहीं हो रही है, right? Economic growth नहीं हो रही है, इसका मतलब it means the jobs will come down. If the jobs will come down, that means the unemployment rate will actually increase, right? So it says that there is stagnation. Stagnation means economy is not growing, the GDP growth rate is not there, and because of that the unemployment rate is coming, increasing. Okay, so there is a contradiction with the Phillips curve. Phillips curve says increase in inflation means the unemployment will come down. Here it is saying even if there is stagnation, but along with the stagnation there is inflation also, and because of stagnation the unemployment rate is increasing and inflation is also there. Means inflation bhi hai, despite inflation the unemployment rate is actually going up. So this is a contradiction to the Phillips curve. Phillips curve के contradiction में है ये. It is actually contradictory to the Phillips curve. It nullifies the Phillips curve. Okay. So now you can ask a question. So why this will happen? How is it possible? How is this possible that the prices are rising but the economic growth is not happening? Because I already discussed that if the prices increase, the producer will get more profit, they will increase the production, the jobs will increase, unemployment rate will come down. Okay, but here inflation is there, महंगाई है, but despite महंगाई, despite inflation, the economic growth is not happening. So this is because this stagflation happens because of some other reasons. The reason can be, for example, there is increase in the oil prices which we import from outside India, right? So in India most of our oil are imported and this oil becomes very, very important for the production. So if we are importing the costly oil from outside India, it will increase the cost of production, it will increase the prices, but the prices is increasing not because of the demand, it is increasing because of the cost. So the inflation is there, but economic growth may not happen. It will not, incentivize the producer to produce more. ये producer को ज़्यादा produce करने के लिए incentivize नहीं करेगा. Okay, so when the prices are rising because of some other factors, because of cost push factors, because of supply side factors, supply is increasing less. So in that case stagflation can happen. Okay, stagflation can happen. So let us see this thing in detail. So stagflation means the coexistence of stagnation. What is the meaning of stagnation? Low GDP growth, number one. Number two, inflation. Stagnation भी है और inflation भी है. And number three, high unemployment. Number three is the high unemployment. Okay, so stagnation, inflation and high unemployment, these are the three coexisting phenomena, right? Now this is contrary to the Phillips curve, because Phillips curve says that this unemployment will be reducing. Here it is saying high. So that is the contradiction. Now, why this stagflation can happen? Number one, because of oil price shock. Oil price shock की वजह से हो सकता है, because we are importing oil from the outside India. The oil price can increase because of international factors, for example, Syria crisis or other kind of ban by the OPEC countries. And because of the oil price, our cost of production can increase. Number two, government is printing too much money within a short period of time. So government, when it prints too much money, for example, in the COVID lockdown time, there was shortage of money. So in this time, if the government prints money, more and more money, people will have more money in their pocket. They will demand more goods, right? But the production cannot increase suddenly. Short time में production increase नहीं हो सकती, right? Because increase in production takes time. It will take time to establish new factory. But this printing of too much money in the short period, it will increase the prices suddenly. So prices will increase, but economic growth is not happening. Okay. Then stringent regulations on the businesses combined with high taxes. So for example, before 1991, when we were a closed economy, then we had very high restrictions on the business. There was license quota raj. So during this time, it was difficult to start a business. It was difficult to increase the production. Okay. So despite increasing the prices, the production cannot increase because of so many business restrictions, or there are very high amount of taxes, and because of high taxes, the price of the product is increasing. And the next thing can be unexpected crisis like COVID. COVID के time पे भी क्या होता है? What is happening in the COVID? In the COVID, there is lockdown, and because of the lockdown, the labor is actually moving to their hometown, and there is a labor crisis. So because of labor crisis, the production is actually coming down, but the demand cannot come down beyond a level, because people will need the goods and services. कुछ तो उनको minimum चाहिए ना. For example, they need the food products, they will need the fruits, they need the vegetables. So the demand cannot increase, but production is decreasing. The demand cannot decrease, but production is decreasing. So in this case also stagflation is possible. In India, if we see the condition of stagflation, in India we are discussing this from the last 1 year, because even before the COVID time, consecutively for the 6 quarters, the prices were increasing, but the GDP growth was poor. Okay, so even before the COVID era, even before the lockdown, our growth rate was coming down. There was stagnation, and there was inflation. So from that time we are discussing about stagflation, and now even after the lockdown, even after the COVID time, right now we are also discussing whether we are in the stagflation or not, because we are experiencing all these conditions. We are experiencing this stagnation because our GDP is contracting. GDP is actually going down, negative हो गई है हमारी, ठीक है? And there is inflation, especially consumer price, consumer level पर वहां पे inflation है. So we can say that yes, there is a possibility of stagflation in India. Now you will ask, sir, what is the problem with the stagflation? अगर stagflation है तो समस्या क्या है? What is the problem? So my friends, the problem is that it becomes very, very difficult to control this situation for the government. Why? Let us see why. We will see why this becomes very, very difficult to control this situation. So just give me a second. Okay, so are you enjoying the discussion? Okay, so coming back, why it becomes difficult to control the stagflation. So, for example, इन्फ्लेशन इज देयर, तो स्टैगफ्लेशन में इन्फ्लेशन तो होगा ही होगा, ठीक है। नाउ व्हाट कैन वी डू, हम क्या कर सकते हैं टू कंट्रोल द इन्फ्लेशन? आइदर वी कैन increase the interest rate. If we talk about the monetary policy, if we want to control this rate of inflation through the monetary policy, we will increase the rate of interest on the loan so that people they take less loan and they demand less amount of goods, ठीक है। तो इंटरेस्ट रेट हम बढ़ा सकते हैं so that money supply comes down and the demand comes down. If the demand comes down, chances that inflation can come down. Okay, so we are trying to increase the interest rate, but because of the increase in the interest rate, there is a problem that the businesses will find it difficult. The businesses will find it difficult to take the loan for their business. They will find it difficult to increase the production capacity, right? So increase in interest rate, it will actually decrease the production, which is again very, very difficult, which is actually dangerous. Second thing is, the second solution is that government says, okay, let us decrease the interest rate so that the businessman takes the loan, and they increase the production. But if they decrease the interest rate, then the demand will increase because the people will take the loan, the consumer will take the loan, and they will demand more goods. So again, the inflation will increase. Are you getting? So in any case, it becomes very, very difficult for the government to control this kind of inflation. So what is the solution? What is the solution? The solution lies in increasing the production through other, reducing the restrictions on the business, giving incentive for the establishment of new factories, increasing agricultural productivity, giving incentive for the increase in agricultural productivity. For example, government giving subsidy on the Fasal Bima Yojana, government increasing incentive on the seeds, on the irrigation facilities. Are you getting? So the only solution to this kind of problem is increase in the production through non-monetary measures, through giving relaxation, through incentivizing the production, giving incentive to the industry, incentivizing establishment of new factories. Okay, so that can be the solution for the stagflation, and this takes time. It is not a very short term work. It cannot happen in the short term. It will take time. Okay, so this is stagflation. Nowadays, stagflation is news, and you will come across in the magazines of the September and October month that this stagflation is in news. Okay, so I have discussed all of that. Difficulty in managing the stagflation, I have already discussed that if we reduce the inflation rate, interest rate, then it increases the demand. If we increase the interest rate, then it decreases the production. Okay. Now there is a concept called misery index. What is misery index? So misery index is actually the impact of stagflation, the impact of stagflation over the people. तो उसका impact क्या होता है? So basically it is calculating the inflation rate plus unemployment rate. It is actually combining both of them. Combining both of them, it gives misery index, and it is basically calculating the economic health. Right? It was introduced in 1970s in America, and based upon this index, the misery can be calculated. What is misery? Misery means citizens are facing the problem. Because if we see inflation, what is inflation? Inflation is actually, it is also called as unlegislated tax. Do you know about it? Sorry. So this inflation is also called as unlegislated tax. Unlegislated tax means without levying, without imposing the tax, the pocket of the consumer is impacted adversely. Means their purchasing power is coming down. Okay. So on the one hand, their purchasing power is coming down. On the other hand, there is unemployment. So both, it impacts the citizens adversely. That is why this is called misery. If the score is more, if inflation and unemployment is more, that means there is more misery. Okay. And in broad sense, some of the economists, they also include the banking lending rates in this indicator. Okay. So what is the bank lending rate? If bank lending rate is also increasing, then it impacts even more. Okay. So this is misery index. Now there is one more concept, that is Engel's law. What is Engel's law? So basically what happens, for example, there is Mr. A. Now this Mr. A, it has the income of suppose 10,000 rupees in 2010. Now out of this total income, his food expenditure of the family is suppose 6,000 rupees. So if we see as a percentage, this food expenditure is how much? 60%. Right? Now suppose this in 2020, his income increases because he is doing very good in his life, very good in career. Suppose his income comes to 1 lakh rupees per month. Now food expenditure will not increase so much because there is a limit to which this food expenditure can increase. So food expenditure, suppose it increases to see 30,000, because food तो एक लिमिट से ज्यादा नहीं खा सकते ना आप लोग, है ना? So how much will be the total share? 30%. So as the household income increases from 10,000 to 1 lakh, household income increase हो रही है, the percentage of income spent on food decreases. So here the percentage of income spent on food was 60%. Here the percentage of income spent on food was 30%. So this percentage is actually decreasing, while the proportion spent on other goods increases, right? So earlier 60% was spent on food, 40% was spent on the other goods, luxury goods, other necessities. But now 30% is spent on the food, 70% is spent on the other products, right? So this is called Engel's law. इसको हम बोलते हैं Engel's law. So here you can see as the income is increasing, the amount spent on the proportion of income spent on the food is actually not increasing that much, but the amount of income spent on other things is actually increasing. ठीक है? So this is called Engel's law. Now there is a concept called cobweb phenomena, and this concept was there in the economic survey of 2019-20. Okay, so what is this cobweb phenomena? Let us discuss that. So this cobweb phenomena is actually indicating the relationship between the prices, the government supported prices, and the production level. Okay, so for example we talk about this rate, pulses के जो rate हैं हम उसकी बात करते हैं, the prices of the pulses. So these are the like inflation rate of the pulses, right? So suppose in 1 year the prices are rising very fast. So what farmers will do? The farmers will actually increase the production in the next year because the prices of pulses are very, very high. So they will expect that, okay, now we will produce pulses and next year we will earn a lot of profit. Now, because the production is increasing suddenly, all the farmers have started producing pulses, but demand will not increase suddenly. There is a demand which has the demand has a limitation. So sudden increase in the production, but demand remains constant. So what will be the impact? The prices will actually come down, right? Because supply is increasing, but demand is not increasing. So prices will come down here. So you can see in the 1 year, there is a increase in the price. Next year, within 1 year only, there is sudden decrease in the price. Now, when there is a sudden decrease in the price, again, what will happen? Again, the farmers, they will reduce the production in the next year. They will think that yeah, it is a wrong calculation. We should not produce pulses because the prices are very, very low, right? So what they will do, they will reduce the production. So now when the production is reduced, but demand do not reduce, demand remains constant. Okay. So again, the next year the prices will be increasing. So can you see this relationship, this fluctuation? This is called Cobb-Webb phenomena. उसको हम क्या बोलते हैं? Cobb-Webb phenomena बोलते हैं. And this has been given in the economic survey of 2019-20. That is why we are discussing here, because many times the question are asked from the economic survey also, and I have promised that I will be covering previous year question, economic survey, current affair, everything in our lecture. ठीक है? So you must understand this Cobb-Webb phenomena very, very carefully. Phenomena. उसको हम क्या बोलते हैं? Cobb-Webb phenomena. This has been given in the economic survey of 2019-20. That is why we are discussing here, because many times the question are asked for something. So, Cobb-Webb phenomena, it is the idea that price fluctuation can lead to fluctuation in the supply, which causes a cycle of rising and the falling prices. ठीक है? तो जैसे जैसे प्राइस फ्लक्चुएट होता है, वैसे वैसे सप्लाई फ्लक्चुएट होती है, and again it leads to the fluctuation in the prices, right? The farmers base their sowing decision on the prices witnessed in the previous marketing time, and that actually impacts the prices of the next time. So here you can see this diagram which we discussed. The presence of peak might indicate that toward the presence of Cobb-Webb phenomena. So this peak or extreme low. Okay. Now for this, for controlling this phenomena, because this phenomena actually impacts a to protect against it, the measures include like procurement under price stabilization fund. Price stabilization fund में procurement करना, or minimum support price need to be more effective. When the government will give minimum support price, it will allow farmer to produce even in the crisis time. So there will not be shortage of production and the prices will not rise suddenly, right? Similarly, price stabilization fund will also help the farmers when there is a sudden decrease in the price. The government can actually buy those goods and can help the farmers, right? So this price stabilization fund and minimum support price can be helpful in this situation. Now, there are some important terms which you should understand. Number one is the imported inflation, and number two is the DNS allowance. These are some of the related terms which you should understand. What is the meaning of imported inflation? When the rise in the price is because of imported commodities. For example, the oil, the gold, because these are the major item of import. So when the price of oil increase, there is an increase in the transportation cost, which increases the logistics cost, which increases the cost of production and increases the price level in the economy. Similarly, because of the increase in the gold price also, there can be inflation in certain items. So this is called imported inflation. Then what is DNS allowance? Here basically means increase, right? So because of inflation, the cost of living of the government employees can increase. So to to support the government employees in managing this increased cost, this DNS allowance is given as the extra salary. Okay, this is given in addition to the salary. This is kind of extra salary which is given to the government employee. So it is calculated as a percentage of the basic salary to mitigate the impact of inflation, right? So for example, there is a salary of 10,000 rupees. So government will say that okay, 10% will be the DNS allowance. So total salary will be 10 plus 10%, that is 11,000 rupees. So this is how this DNS allowance works. Okay. So there can be a single line question about DNS allowance. Otherwise, this is a very, very simple concept. Now calculation of inflation. This is very, very important. How do we calculate the inflation? Inflation कैसे calculate करना है, right? So I will take a break of 2 minutes, 2-3 minutes, and then we will start because it's been one hour and we have been discussing. Meanwhile, if you have any question, please feel free to ask me. I am available to answer your queries. You can type in the chat box or you can, yeah, you can type in the chat box only. There is no other option. So let us start. So please understand that this is a very, very important concept, and you should bring 100% concentration in the class. Then only you will be able to understand in a systematic. So let us take an example. First of all, what is the meaning of inflation? Inflation means price rise. Now, suppose we take an example 2004-5, 2005-6, 2006-7, and 2008-9. Suppose the price of a commodity of any item is 2 rupees per kg, 3 rupees per kg, 3.5 rupees per kg, and 4 rupees per kg. Price rupees per kg. Okay, this is the price. Now, what we do, first of all, we calculate the price index. So this is something new which you have to understand. We calculate the, okay, first I have to erase this thing. So we calculate the price index. What is price index? Price index is basically how much is the increase in the price as compared to the base year. So for that we calculate the price index. Suppose here this 2004-5 is the base year. Base year का मतलब होता है कि see, if we have to calculate the change in the price, so what is this inflation? This is price rise or change in the price, right? More appropriately, this is change in the price. So if we have to calculate change in the price, we have to compare with some base. उस बेस के कंपैरिजन में कितना चेंज हुआ, then only we can identify the change in price ना. So we are taking 1 year as the base year. We will take any 1 year as the base year, and then we will see the change which is happening as compared to that base year. Okay, so this is how we calculate the price index. So what we do, we take this as the base year, and then in the next year we calculate how much is the change. So change कितना हो गया? Earlier it was 3, earlier it was 2, now it is 3. So how much increase? As compared to 3, now it is 2 multiplied by 100. So this price index is basically 150. That means there is increase of 50%. Then in the next year, in 2006-7, again there is an increase 3.5 from 2. So 3.5, that is the price of current year, divided the price of the base year, multiplied by 100. It comes to be 175. So this is the price index of this year. Okay, the price index of 4-5 it will be taken as 100. तो बेस ईयर की जो प्राइस इंडेक्स होता है उसको 100 ही मान के चलते हैं हमेशा. Always it is taken as the 100 only. Then next year, that is 7-8. This is 7-8. In the 7-8, it is 4. That is the price of current year divided by price of the base year multiplied by 100. So it comes out to be 200. So what is price index? What is the formula? The formula is the price of current year divided by price of base year multiplied by 100. This is how we calculate the price index. हम एक इंडेक्स कैलकुलेट कर रहे हैं. We are calculating a trend. एक ट्रेंड पता चल रहा है. Here we can clearly identify that in the first year if the price was 100 rupees, in the second year it is 150 rupees, in the third year this is 175 rupees, in the fourth year this is 200 rupees. This is very much clear that okay, this much is the increase in the price, this much is the change in the price. So this is price index. This price index, it takes help of the base year. This base year, it is used only and only to calculate the price index, nothing else. Please understand. This base year, it is used only and only for calculation of the price index, nothing else. Now we will calculate the rate of inflation. Okay. So what is the rate of inflation? This is basically change in the price. उसको हम बोलते हैं rate of inflation. What is the change in the price index? Basically, how much is the change in the price index as compared to the previous year versus previous year के कंपैरिजन में कितना चेंज हुआ है प्राइस इंडेक्स. So here, for example, we talk about this year 2005-6. ठीक है, यहाँ पे the price index is 150. Last year it was 100. So there is increase of 50, and upon the base of last year, that is 100. So there is an increase of 50%. Okay, sorry. So basically, we will basically multiply by 100. So basically, don't get into this formula, etc. I don't want you to, become, make this complex calculation. The only purpose is to give you an idea so that you understand the concept. The purpose is not to involve yourself into the calculation. Don't stuck into the calculation. A calculation समझने की जरूरत नहीं है आपको. You don't have to make the calculation. What you have to understand is that rate of inflation we are calculating based upon the price index. The price index last year was 100, now it is 50. So it means we have to compare the price index of this year with the previous year. So our price is changing by 150 minus 100 upon 100 into 100. So 50% is the rate of inflation. So this much is the rate of inflation. ये आपका rate of inflation है. Now next year, please understand in the 6-7. Here we will take the index of current year minus the index of last year divided by the index of last year. Please understand this very very carefully. यहाँ पर आप गलती कर सकते हो that this index that we are taking is index of the previous year, not the base year. This is the index of previous year, not the index of base year. यहाँ पर base year index नहीं है, because I already told you that this base year is used only for calculation of price index. This base year is not used for the calculation of rate of inflation. ये rate of inflation calculate करने के लिए यूज नहीं होती है, ये सिर्फ और सिर्फ प्राइस इंडेक्स के लिए ही यूज होती है. ठीक है. So coming back, here we are comparing the price index of previous year, always the last year. If we are talking about 6-7, we will see the price index of 5-6. If we are talking about 7-8, we will see the price index of 6-7, and so on. Just preceding last 1 year, not more than that. We will not go back to the base year. Base year का नहीं देखेंगे, because the base year purpose was only to calculate the index. The purpose was not to calculate the rate of inflation, right? So coming back, rate of inflation, not the base year, right? So here if we calculate this, so we get how much? 25 upon 150 into 100. तो जो भी कैलकुलेशन आएगा that we will do, it will be जो भी आएगा. Just a minute. Again, don't focus on the calculation part. Focus on the trend. Focus on the concept. ठीक है. Now we will discuss each one of these things, and you will be able to understand this example which I discussed more clearly, and you will be able to understand this definition concept clearly. Okay. If you have any questions so far, please ask in the chat box so that I can answer. Otherwise, we will discuss it in terms of language, in terms of concept, and then you will be better able to appreciate what I am trying to say, right? So According to economic survey, so we have taken the definition from the economic survey, inflation is estimated as the percentage rate of change in the price index. Price index हम कैलकुलेट कर चुके हैं, ठीक है, over the reference time period. This reference time period will always be the previous year. This will always be the previous year or the last year, or it can be previous, previous year's week, जिसको year and year calculation की बात करते हैं, or it can be one of the month of the previous year, but it will belong to the previous year only. Week हो सकता है, month हो सकता है, or it can be entire year. हम लोग कैलकुलेट करते हैं year on year inflation. So reference time period will be the last year. Example I have discussed, this price of the base year is 4-5, 2 rupees, 3 rupees. In my example I have discussed this calculation also, 150, 175, 200 rupees. We have seen this calculation of price index. Okay, so what is the formula of the price index? The price at the base time we will be putting it in the denominator, and price at the specific time, that is in the current year, we will be putting in the numerator, and we will multiply by the 100. So this is called price index. So price index means calculating the rise in the price, calculating rise in the price of the current year over the price of base year. Please understand, this price index is always calculated with reference to the base year, never with reference to the previous year, always with reference to the base year. Okay, so base year is calculated, base year is used only to calculate the index number, not for calculating the rate of inflation. So rate of inflation, how do we calculate the rate of inflation? The percentage of rise in the price index. So for calculation of inflation rate, we see the change in the price index from the previous period. Mostly this is the previous year only, right? That is called rate of inflation. How do we calculate the rate of inflation? We have given the example, right? Is it clear so far? ठीक है, calculation clear है आपको? Now we discuss the concept of base effect. So base year I have discussed what is the meaning of base year. Now we discuss the concept of the base effect. What is the meaning of base effect? So base effect basically refers to the phenomena of current year being influenced by the very low or very high previous year index, right? So for example, you see in the current year the price of a commodity is 200 rupees. In the previous year there are two things possible, either the price was 100 rupees or the price was 150 rupees. So बेसिकली प्राइस इंडेक्स, ठीक है, जो करंट ईयर के प्राइस इंडेक्स है वो 200 रुपीज है, प्रीवियस ईयर में प्राइस इंडेक्स, देयर आर टू केसेस पॉसिबल. केस 1 द प्राइस इंडेक्स इज 100 एंड केस 2 द प्राइस इंडेक्स इज 150. So in this case what will happen? In the case 1 the rate of inflation will be how much? It will be 100%. And in the second case the rate of inflation will be somewhere around how much? From 150 to 200, it will be somewhere around 33%. Okay, so you can see the current year price is same, that is 200 rupees, but in the case 1 the inflation rate is 100%, in the case 2 the inflation rate is 33%. But why this, despite being the same rate in the current year, why this rate of inflation is changing in the two different cases? Because the base are different. In one case the base is very low, 100, and in the second case the base is high, that is 150. So because of the impact of base, because of the impact of the previous year, because some in one year this is very low, so inflation rate comes to be very high, the base is very high, inflation rate comes to be very low. So this is called base effect. इसको हम बोलते हैं base effect. Is it clear everyone? So base effect refers to the phenomena of current year index being influenced by the very low or very high previous year index. ठीक है? So example I have already given to you. ठीक है? This is one more example you can see. So now this is the question. Please take your time. I will give you 1 minute. Read this question carefully and then we will give what is the answer. This is the UPSC question. So take your time, understand it carefully and carefully give the answer in the chat box. So what is the answer? Okay, good. The answer is C only. A rapid increase in the rate of inflation is sometimes attributed to the base effect. Number one, it is the impact of drastic deficiency in the supply due to impact of crop. It is not true. It is the impact of surge in the demand due to rapid economic growth. So demand, it has nothing to do with this. Okay, crop, demand, nothing. See, it is the impact of price level of previous year on the calculation of inflation rate. This is we have already discussed. This is true. Option D, none of the statement A, B, and C. So this is not true. So answer is option C. Okay. So if you understand the concept, then you can give the answer very easily. Now, what is this base year? Let us see that. Base year means it becomes the base calculation of inflation. And because we are taking this as the base year, please understand that this has to be taken as a a stable year. What is the meaning of stable year? What is the meaning of stable year? Stable year means when the things are stable, there is not much instability. For example, in 2020, can we make the 2020 as the base year? No, because there is so much instability because of this COVID. Similarly, in some year there is natural calamity in the country. So can we make this that particular year? No, we cannot make. Are you getting? So criteria for deciding the particular financial year as the base year, that it should not be affected by the monsoon deficit, or it should not be affected by the natural calamity, drought, famine. Then in this year, the inflation rate should not be too much alarming. Alarming means रेट जो है वो बहुत ज्यादा हाई है. Unstable years, for example, whenever the economic activity is unstable, for example 2020 because of COVID lockdown, and then when the gap year between the base year and the current year is very high. For example, if we say that we will take the gap base year as a 1980, it is not suggested because 1980 means around 40 years ago. That is too much. So we should go as much as possible in the recent time. So 2011, 2016, these are some of the base years which are there. 2001, right? And we will see the different indices, different base year. So now next concept is year on year inflation. So I have discussed this concept, but again, let us see this concept. Year on year means, for example, we want to calculate the rate of inflation in the month of January 2020. So we will compare the price of the commodity in the month of January 2019, right? January 2019. So we are comparing 1 month of the current year to the same month of the previous year. Okay, 20 and 19. So this is called year on year inflation. We are calculating the rate of change from compared to the previous year. Similarly, we can have a comparison, suppose week 40 of the 2020 and week 40 of the 2019, right? Or maybe quarter 1 of the 2020 versus quarter 1 of the 2019, right? So we are comparing the same period but in the last year. That is called year on year inflation. So year on year inflation means the rate of change of inflation over the corresponding period. It can be week, it can be month, it can be quarter, in relation to the frequency of the data of the previous year. Now calculation of inflation, this calculation of inflation we can do at different levels. So if we see anything, for example, the production, if we see the production part, it happens at factory. Okay. Then from factory it goes to the wholesale, and from wholesale it goes to the retail shop, and from here it goes to the consumer. So the price can vary from place to place. In the farm, at the farm level, there will be producer's price. In the wholesale level, there will be wholesale price. And at the consumer level, there will be consumer price, right? So we will actually observe or calculate the change in the producer price, change in the wholesale price, change in the consumer price. So for calculating the changes, we will calculate the consumer price index, the wholesale price index, and the producer price index. I hope you understand now. I hope you understand the concept of price index. Where, because you know the concept of price index. So if you want to calculate the price change at the consumer level, how much is the change in the price in the consumer level, then we will calculate consumer price index. If you want to calculate how much is the change in the wholesale level, we will calculate wholesale price index. If you want to calculate how much is the change in the producer price, we will calculate the producer price index. Are you getting? So depending upon the level at which we want to calculate, we will calculate the price index, right? So these are called weighted indices. Weighted indices means we are actually taking a basket of commodity, because when we are changing the calculation of, we are calculating the change in price, we are not calculating only for single commodity. This inflation rate we are not calculating for single item कि मिल्क में कितना चेंज हो गया, वेजिटेबल में कितना चेंज हो गया. नो, we are calculating for a basket of commodities which are used by the consumer or which are produced in the country, like that. So this basket is combinedly calculated. In the basket there are various commodities. In the basket there are various commodities, and for these various commodities, the importance of each commodity cannot be the same, because there is food, there is education, there is health, and there are other expenses. So this food will be more important as compared to the other, because everyone has to consume the food. So we have to see how much is the weightage of each commodity, and then we have to calculate the price index accordingly, right? So in the calculation of inflation rate, we will be calculating the index, price index, and when we are calculating the price index, we will be looking into the prices of basket of commodity. And because we are looking into the price of basket, in the basket of commodity, we will be looking into how much is the importance or how much is the weightage of each commodity. That is why they are called weighted indices. Indices means, it is the plural of index. इसका index का plural word है, इसलिए हम इसको बोलते हैं weighted indices. I hope the concept is clear to you. Okay. So now various weighted indexes in India we can calculate at the wholesale level, जो हमने बताया आपको, and we can also calculate at the consumer level. Right now we are calculating only at 2 level. We are not calculating at more than 2 level. Okay. So at the wholesale level we have only one price index, that is WPI, but at the consumer level we have multiple price indexes. At the consumer level we have primarily two categories: the old consumer price indexes and the new consumer price indexes, right? जो old हैं, they are, for example, CPI for the industrial worker, for the rural laborers, agricultural laborers. So we calculate the consumer price index for a segment of labor or segment of population, right? But in case of new CPI, it is for the rural area or for the urban area or combined. So here it is segment wise, segment of population wise, and here it is area wise, the rural, urban versus others, right? So wholesale price index, consumer price index, right? So consumer price index is for the industrial workers, consumer price index for so we will discuss each one of them, right? Agricultural laborer, we will discuss each one of them, and then CBI combined, etc., right? So these are the weighted indices. Now the wholesale price index versus the consumer price index. Okay, so we will understand these two indices, we will compare, and then we will understand through the comparison. So first is the wholesale price index or the WPI. That means the price index at the wholesale level, and here the price index at the consumer level, that is the CPI. These are the two famous indexes which are there. Okay, so first I will ask you to please take 1 minute and read this slide very carefully, and then I will discuss. Then you will be better appreciating the discussion, right? So take 1 minute and read this carefully. indexes which are there. Okay. So first I will ask you to please read, take 1 minute and read this slide very carefully, and then I will discuss. Then you will be better appreciating the discussion, right? So take 1 minute and read this carefully. So let us start. Wholesale price index. It calculates the change in the price level at the wholesale level. Consumer price index, it calculates change in the price level at the retail level, at the customer level, consumer level. Then which agency publishes? So it is published by Office of Economic Advisor, the Ministry of Commerce and Industry. Consumer price index, it is published by National Statistical Office, that is NSO. It comes under the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation. You have to understand where in one thing very importantly, this wholesale work is a commerce and industry task. Wholesale is the industry. That is why this is the Ministry of Commerce and Industry. And this consumer level here, there is a calculation of trend calculation, which is done by the statistical office. So the point I want to make is कि आप try to remember these office name by the logic rather than just by rectification. So you see this Office of Economic Advisor, this is under Ministry of Commerce and Industry, because and why this is calculating this WPI, because this is the wholesale transaction which happens in the industry, right? Then wholesale price index, this is done only for the goods, and this is a limitation, big problem with the WPI. But so give me a minute, I'll be back in a minute. There is some problem in the hello. Next, In the wholesale price index, the stage of transaction is first or subsequent wholesale. And in the consumer level, this is the final stage because ultimate transaction happen with the consumer. When consumer buys, after that there is no further transaction, right? Prices here it is paid by manufacturer and the wholesaler, and it is paid by the consumer. So consumer is actually spending from the pocket. How many item in the wholesale? We have 697 item. In the consumer we have 448 item in case of rural, and in case of urban we have 460 items, right? We will see the classification of item. In the wholesale price index, classification is primary item, and fuel and power, and the manufactured item. And here the basket is different. So you have to understand two things very importantly. Number one, the office who is calculating, and number two, the coverage, right? These two things you have to understand, you have to remember very carefully. Now, what type of item are covered? So here primarily you can see manufacturing item or intermediate item, machinery, etc. They are covered because this is for the business purpose primarily. ठीक है, ये business purpose के लिए है. And this is for the consumption. For the consumption, you can see education, communication, transportation, food, housing. तो जो लोग हम consume करते हैं वो item यहाँ पे आएंगी. Now the base year in case of wholesale price index, this is 1112, and in case of CPI, this is 2012. Okay, so this is the thing. Right. So CPI, this CPI base year is 2012, and when we are saying about CPI, this is CPI combined. Okay. There are other CPI, industrial worker or so on. We are not talking about that. Weightage for the food products. Here you have to understand this comparison. In the consumption, the food percentage will be high because consumer is actually giving more importance to the food. But in case of wholesale, the food will be less. So this is another major comparison, right? So this is another major comparison. Now UPSC 2020 question. So basically before that, let me tell you, if we talk about the headline inflation, I told you in the last class. So earlier only WPI was calculated, but now even CPI is also taken as the headline inflation. CPI is also considered for the policy making. Even we can see that for controlling the inflation, we use inflation target, and that inflation target is based upon the CPI. We actually look into the CPI, and that is how we calculate the inflation target. Okay, so now this CPI has been taken as the new reference. Earlier it was only WPI. Okay, now you will be able to understand this question. This is the question of 2020, which happened on the 4th of October, and you should solve this question very carefully. Take 1 minute and solve. Please answer in the chat box. Okay, so let us see. Okay, answer D. Okay, so basically answer is not D, answer is option A. Okay, So let us see why this answer is A. Statement 1, weightage of food in the CPI is higher as compared to the WPI. The answer is right, because in the consumption the food will be more. Number 2, WPI do not capture change in the price of services. Yes, because in WPI we only take goods, not services. So this statement is also right. Reserve Bank of India has now adopted WPI. So basically it is wrong, has now adopted CPI as the key measure of inflation and to decide on the changing key policy rate. Okay. So key measure of inflation means for the inflation targeting, it has now adopted CPI. Okay. So answer is option 1 and 2 only, option A, right? Now you can see the previous trend of these WPI and CPI. So this CPI, you can see this is declining, and WPI this is increasing as compared to last year. But this will again be updated in the month of February when we discuss the economic survey. Okay, so we will discuss the economic survey and then you can see. Right now we will stop this session, and in the next session we will continue with these new indices, wholesale price index, and inside this we will discuss industrial worker, non manual employees, agricultural labor. All these things we will discuss in the next class. We will discuss all of these things, and this is important because recently there was a news of change in the base year of industrial worker CPI, right? So we will discuss that. Okay, so if any question, please ask me. Otherwise we will complete today's session. Thank you very much. It's been pleasure to have this discussion, and we have discussed so many good things, and we have been discussing the previous year question. We have been discussing the this economic survey, budget, etc. Okay. Okay, wonderful. Thank you very much, and God bless you. Thank you very much.